Yo, 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 welcome everyone to a Christmas Day edition and Merry Christmas to everyone. Now, this show I wanted to do at like 9 a.m. Mountain Time, which is where I am right now, which would have been like 8 a.m. Pacific Time and like 11 a.m. Eastern Time, but I wasn't really able to do that. Obviously, Christmas Day and everything, but we're here now and it's about midday my time. So on the East Coast, it'd be like 2 p.m. But we're going to talk some football. And I apologize that I can't do this live on in the evening because I got stuff to do. But we're going to talk football, primarily the 49ers. Let me take down this banner. But yeah, primarily the 49ers. And like I said, Merry Christmas to everyone. We're going to recap the Colts game briefly, and then we're going to really get into the 49ers versus Bears preview. And that's kind of part of the reason why I started this show a little bit later is because I mean, there was a lot like when I got into the preview of this matchup, the Niners versus Bears, there's a more to cover than honestly I thought because these two teams, there's not a definitive team where you're like, okay, this team on paper has more talent because both coaches are great. Both teams are very hot. The Niners have a ton of question marks. The Bears are a young team. I don't know. Like, my biggest question in this game is going to be Caleb Williams. And so there was a lot to get into for this game because there's just not like the Colts versus 49ers. I could say, well, with Phillip Rivers, the 49ers are still on paper from what we've seen. They should take care of business. Like I said, with the 49ers versus Bears is different because both teams match up really well. And then both teams have a ton of question marks. Yeah, really want to get a new mic for the setup. And then obviously make sure that you guys stay around for clips from this show that I'm going to be posting afterwards. And then obviously we're going to talk about like kind of the injuries because a big part of this game is going to be who's going to be in and who's going to be out. And that's where I think during the season, the old saying that a lot of people say injuries, like the healthiest team at this point in the season is going to be the one that probably wins the Super Bowl. And it doesn't even matter if on paper you're the best team or you're the best team, but you're not the healthiest. You probably won't win the Super Bowl. And that's what we're seeing right now with the Rams, really, because Davante Adams, right? Oh my God, fuck the glare of the sun through my window. Davante Adams, that's throwing me off. Davante Adams, not healthy for the Rams, going to probably miss the rest of the regular season. That's going to be a big factor. They're probably on paper one of the, I would say one of the more, I'd say the most talented team, but can they get it done? Now they're sitting at the 6th seed and they're not the healthiest team. They're a perfect example of a team that at one point in the season was really hot, but then a couple injuries came along and then now they've gotten not great seeding. They might still be the best team, but playing from the 6th seed is a lot different from playing from the 1 seed. So let's get right into it though. I'm done ranting about random shit. We're going to talk Niners versus Colts recap. And really quickly, I'm going to go close my blinds. So I'm going to stop the camera. All right, that is much better. But yeah, we're going to talk. Let's first kind of recap. Now, the reason why I'm not going to spend much time on this topic is second coffee of the day. it was 4 days ago, so I feel like it has been talked about a lot, but I wanted to kind of bring up some of my notes that I took off of the game. Where obviously, I mean, when you talk about this game, you obviously have to talk about Brock Purdy. He was electric. And we really did see like how good he can be when the offensive line is playing at a top 5 level. And I'm not saying like it's going to look like that every week. By no means is it going to look like that. The offensive line predicates a big part of how well they play, predicates a big part on how well the defensive line and just the overall defense is looking. And I'm not saying the Colts defense is bad, but they were missing 2 top cornerbacks in Sauce Gardner and Charvarius Ward. Those are 2 top 10 cornerbacks, Sauce Gardner being one of the best in the league, Charvarius Ward being a top 10 to top 5 corner when healthy. So they were missing 2 top cornerbacks, which made probably guys getting open a hell of a lot easier, especially for Jawan Jennings, who can't win one-on-one most of the time because he just doesn't have the speed. So that was one factor, on top of the fact that, like, I don't know, I wrote in my notes here, fire the Colts, in all caps, Colts need to fire Lou Anarumo, because I don't know how, like, he wasn't mixing up pressures. He wasn't finding creative ways to bring blitzes on Brock Purdy, because anyone knows, like, especially with a short guy, a physically not imposing guy like Brock Purdy, who's 6 foot, the way to get to him is to get pressure on him, because when you get him out of the pocket, yeah, he's going to scramble around, but he's not a guy with an arm who can reset his hips and throw it to a guy 15 yards downfield on a dime. And so when you get pressure on Brock Purdy, when you get to this offensive line, it limits what the 49ers can do offensively. And so Lou Anarumo didn't even try to do that. Like, so the defense for the Colts was showing its cracks with all the injuries and with an off defensive coordinator who really shouldn't be there. And it's worse, like I said, because they don't have the scheme. He wasn't scheming up anything to cover up some of those weaknesses. And that was the big difference in this game was, Robert Saleh, the Niners defense is just as banged up as the Colts defense. Let me silence my phone. The Niners defense is just as banged up as the Colts defense, but the difference is that the Niners find ways, Robert Saleh finds ways to kind of scheme the Niners' weaknesses out of the game. Lou Anarumo did not do that in this game. Now, I will say what the 49ers did to DeForest Buckner was impressive, because that's, a top, at this point in his career, I don't think he's a top defensive tackle, but he's still an impressive player. Finding the way that they found a way to scheme him out of this game was impressive. And it's not even like the Colts defensive line. I mean, I've just spent the last 2 minutes trashing the Colts defense. It's not even like the Colts defensive line or defense is that bad. I'm going to give the 49ers offense some of their credit, because the Colts defensive line has Laiatu Latu, the defensive end, who PFF ranks him a top 10 defensive end this season with an 84 PFF grade or rush grade. So, and then you obviously have DeForest Buckner. So it's not even like the defense for the Colts is necessarily that bad anyways. You have to give Kyle Shanahan, the Niners offense, their props. Now, I will say, I'm going to quickly revisit this point. Brock Purdy with an offensive line, with time, is electric. I mean, he's a top 5 MVP candidate. So what does this say? And I brought this up last show. What does this say about how the 49ers should approach this offseason and rebuilding this offensive line? We should make it a main priority, because when you give a person like Brock Purdy time in the pocket, he's better than almost any other quarterback in the league. Like, I'm not even exaggerating that. So rebuild the center position, rebuild the right guard position, because when he has time, he's electric. I'd say, okay, let's see what else. I mean, one of the impressive things, and this is going to be something that carries into the Bears game, and can the 49ers in this game make adjustments at halftime on defense, because they're going to have to. There's going to be things that Ben Johnson is going to come out and do that we're not going to be prepared for. And frankly, is going to catch us off guard. And one thing that I think I saw out of this defense in the first half was they made adjustments. In the first half against Phillip Rivers, it was because I don't know if you guys remember, but like the Colts versus the Seahawks the week before, a lot of what they were doing was short pass, check down, not pushing it downfield. So I think the Niners, off of tape, they really just had 1 week to go off of when they were watching Phillip Rivers to prepare for, when they were preparing on defense and watching Phillip Rivers. They said, we're going to take away the check down, take away the short pass, and we're going to make him push it downfield, because that's kind of what he showed against the Seahawks the week before. And so what the Colts did in the first half was show, okay, Phillip Rivers can still push the intermediate parts of the field. He can still go 10 to 15 yards in the middle of the field. And so then the 49ers come back in the second half, and the Colts offense was rolling. Then the 49ers come back in the second half and say, okay, we're going to take away that middle of the field, that 10 to 15 yard intermediate range. And it worked. I mean, I would say that defense from first half to second half looks so much better, that Niners defense, that, I mean, there was a noticeable difference. Our defense went from being one of the worst in the first half to the second half, it looked serviceable, right? And it also helped, like, most of the game we were limiting one of the best running backs in the game in Jonathan Taylor. And that was one person who, in my comment section in my last show, said that was a big factor, is that we limited Jonathan Taylor. And that's completely right. I mean, he was barely able, I can't remember the exact averages of what he ran, but it looked like he was able to maybe get 3 yards per carry, even less, 2 yards per carry. And that made Phillip Rivers, that made the Colts have to throw the ball a shit ton to even get the ball down the field, because their run game just was not working. They weren't able to play off of the run. And when they entrusted Phillip Rivers, a 45-year-old quarterback, to just sling the ball around the field, that's a recipe for disaster. So that was another kind of factor, is we did a really good job at limiting the run game, which in turn just completely shut down this offense. Another factor, like, that I kind of took away from this game was, number one, Renardo Green is going to have to come back for the Bears game, and it's looking like he will. He was limited in practice. He barely even missed last game. But Renardo Green, cornerback, is going to have to come back, because Luter was terrible. Our cornerback who filled in for Renardo Green was terrible. The amount of PATs he made, the amount of throws where, Phillip Rivers would just throw it up, and the ball wouldn't even be a good ball, but Luter would just be hanging all over Alec Pierce. So Renardo Green, the amount of maybe the gripes that I've had with him before in the past, yes, he's not a great corner, but he's better than his backup, Luter. And so, I mean, he's going to have to come back. And then I think this is more of a long-term thing, because Tatum Bethune was back for this game, but long-term, he's going to have to stay healthy, because there was a point in this game at the end where he went out for a couple plays, because I don't know what happened to him, and Eric Kendricks came in, and automatically you saw the step down from Tatum Bethune to Eric Kendricks. Now, Eric Kendricks used to be a great linebacker, but now I can't remember how old he is, but for however old he is, he's just not the same. And so, and you could immediately see it, like the run game got worse, over the middle of the field got worse. Tyler Warren, got a few passes when Tatum Bethune was out and Eric Kendricks was in. So Tatum Bethune is going to have to stay healthy the entire season. That much is true if the 49ers are going to make a run, because like I said, when he went out, It wasn't great. So Renardo Green, Tatum Bethune, two guys that they're kind of unsung heroes because if they're missing, the Niners defense, I think, takes a major step back. Yeah, that's all the kind of takeaways I had from this game that went a little bit longer. Honestly, like I was able to stretch that topic for 10 minutes, which is quite impressive. So are we going to get to it? Let's get to it. 49ers versus Bears preview. I guess where we should start is Caleb Williams. On the season, he's averaging 57.8% completion rate. And you even look at some games, like I can even look, let me go onto this other tab and kind of look at, do I still have his season completion rate? Yeah. So, I mean, his completion percentage and like the main gripe that everyone has had about Caleb Williams is that, yeah, his inaccuracy is a problem. Has been a problem a lot of the times. He's not a guy who's really going to consistently, like we played Phillip Rivers last week, who the thing about him is, yeah, he's not going to give you a big playability, but he's consistently going to be completing passes. Caleb Williams, complete opposite. Like let's pull the last 4 games, 55.9 completion percentage. Against Cleveland, 60.7 completion percentage. Against Green Bay, 50.4.3 completion percentage. Against Philly, 47.2% completion percentage. And then obviously on the season, he averages 57.8. So this isn't a guy who's going to kind of light up the box score per se. He's not going to light up the completion percentage stats, but what he will give you is a guy who's going to run around and make plays. He's going to give you a guy who's going to throw it downfield, complete downfield. But I think the Niners, if they're going to attack the Bears, they're going to have to look at what the Eagles did to him 4 games ago. He had one of his worst statistical games 4 games ago. The only reason why the Bears won that game, and I was watching it, was DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai were elite in that game. Were running the ball at will against the Eagles. But the Niners stopped Jonathan Taylor. Like, stopping the run, before the Colts game was like, okay, we need to stop the run. That's a big concern. But we stopped the run. So that's not a huge concern for me. So what did the Eagles do to take away the threat of Caleb Williams passing the ball? I think part of the reason why, like, I believe in that game, Rome Odunze was out. I believe Luther Burden was in, but Rome Odunze was out. Now, Rome Odunze is going to be out again this game. He was a non-participant yesterday. Do we have their injury report here pulled up? I believe we have it on another tab because the injuries for this game, I guess I'll get to that slightly later, like how the injuries are going to factor in, because that's huge. Both teams are dealing with massive injuries, but if Rome Odunze, like part of the reason why the Eagles were able to have so much success against Caleb Williams was because of the injury and like the receivers. I think Rome Odunze, if he's out, it limits what the Bears can do, and you've seen a significant drop off in their offense. The Eagles took away the middle of the field. It was hard to reach the middle of the field because they disguised coverages. They said, Caleb Williams, you're a young quarterback. We're going to show 6 and bring 4. We're going to drop 2 players back post snap. And so a big part of his game is going to hinge off of who he has available. And 2 is going to hinge off of, hold on one second, guys. Sorry about that. 2 is going to hinge off of how well, because we already know, like, the Niners are not going to be able to bring pressure. They weren't against the Colts. The Bears most likely are going to have every single one of their offensive linemen available. They have a good offensive line. The Niners are not going to be able to bring pressure consistently. What they are going to be able to do is, like I said, disguise coverage. So, like I said, showing 6, rushing 4, doing blitzes when it is applicable, when it's a good idea. What they are going to do is they're going to be able to confuse Caleb Williams at time. And when you don't have a burner like Rome Odunze, like Luther Burden, he's not a consistent guy because he's a rookie. He's not a consistent guy that you can go to. DJ Moore, he's great, but I think with the fact that we have Lenoir is going to kind of take away DJ Moore a little bit. And so I think on the offensive side of the ball, coaching and the fact that we have Robert Saleh is huge. And if we can disguise the hell out of Caleb Williams, I mean, yeah, we won't be able to bring pressure, but it is an important fact that he is a rookie. Now, defensive side of the ball, 49ers offense versus Bears defense, right? CJ Gardner, let's quickly get to the injuries, right? CJ Gardner-Johnson will be someone to watch because if he is playing and George Kittle is not, then that kind of takes away the threat of a tight end in this game. Drew Dahlman, the guard, limited participant. Look out for him. Let's see what else. Let's look at really quick the Bears injury report. Bears grades, Bears injury report, because that's huge. So first off, 49ers side of the ball, we already talked about Renardo Green. He was limited participant. He's looking to, I think he'll come back. The big one that I was going to bring up is Ricky Pearsall, limited participant in practice yesterday. If he plays, that's huge because even though like he's a guy where I've been saying gripe a lot of this show, but he's a guy where like my main gripe on him this season has been, yeah, you can give him 10 targets, but there's always a chance that he doesn't play the next game. There's a good chance he plays in this game. If that is the case, that I think opens up the Niners pass game a lot. Just having another weapon back is going to help tremendously. George Kittle, let's quickly talk about him. And this is kind of a topic, actually a banner that I had pulled up, is the game plan if George Kittle is out. I already kind of think that this game, even though it's not in Chicago, like if it were in Chicago, I would already be putting the Bears as favorites for this game because it's just so cold. And Brock Purdy, we already know what happens when he plays in the cold. But this game, luckily it's in San Fran. But even though it's in San Fran, I think this game is going to hinge a lot of what the Niners do off of the run game. I think this game, even though I think Brock Purdy can sling the ball around, I think we are going to try to impose our will, impose our physicality early in the game. And that means playing a style of football, a ground and pound style of football that we honestly haven't seen out of this Niners team in a while. And that's run the shit out of the ball. And I think that's just how we're going to have to play because the Bears defense is a big question for this Bears team. The Packers were able to run the ball last week with Josh Jacobs at will. Even when Jordan Love came out, like a big part of their game was Malik Willis running the ball. And so I think we're going to be able to impose our will with Christian McCaffrey, with whatever. And let's just not talk about how if we win this game, Christian McCaffrey has another big game against a Bears defense that I think their main weakness is stopping the run. If Christian McCaffrey has a big game, do we start to consider put him in the MVP conversation? My biggest concern is when the 49ers step back and drop back, the Bears defensive line under Dennis Allen. I mean, a lot of these players that they have had resurgences under Dennis Allen. One of them being Montez Sweat, 82.8 PFF grade last week. When Brock Purdy steps back, the pass rushing matchup. even though the Niners offensive line looked really good last week, I still have my question marks. And I still have my question marks about this entire Niners team. Like, I still don't think there's still a lot of questions where how do we fare against a good defensive line, a good pass rush, a elite defense? Like, I still have my questions. So when Brock Purdy steps back, you're going to have Montez Sweat, who has looked really good under Dennis Allen all year. Him versus Colton McKivitz. Defensive tackle Gervon Dexter, who's looked elite all year, versus Pooney. Cornerback Nahshon Wright has looked really good last year. We already talked about CJ Gardner-Johnson. And then obviously TJ Edwards holding down the middle of the field with a... So, I mean, this defense has... They all have played really well, but this defense has a lot of talent. Now, yes, can you run the ball against them? I believe so. So will we be able to impose our will? That's, I think, the way we win this game. But with that being said, I know I've been talking a lot. With that being said, who do I have more faith in to move the ball? Because I think this game is going to be a lot more physical than I think a lot of us think. I think it's going to be less of a, oh shit, 35-30, each quarterback going down the field and scoring the heck out of the ball, and whoever scores the most is going to win this game. I don't think it's going to be like that at all. I think it's going to be the Bears want to, under Ben Johnson, they're going to want to play physical as well. They're going to want to play physical, have trickery. I mean, my brother brought this point up weeks ago. Ben Johnson's DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai is like a poor man's Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, which is actually so true. That's how Ben Johnson truly wants to play. So that being said, who do I have faith in more? If this game is more low scoring than we think, if it's a 24-21 game, who has the ability to make one or two impressive touchdown drives during the game? Caleb Williams or Brock Purdy. And that's where who has the ability. I mean, both coaches are really good. And so that's where it's like, I'm looking at this game and I'm like, there is not a coach better in this game where I can say if Kyle Shanahan calls his regular game plan, we win this game. No, it's not like that. It's really going to come down to who has one or two drives where it's impressive, one or two drives where they go down and score a touchdown. Is it Caleb Williams or is it Brock Purdy? I think at this point, because Caleb Williams is in his second year, I think at this point I have more faith in Purdy. And this isn't even being biased. I have more faith in Purdy because we've seen more out of him over his career than I have in Caleb Williams. And this is why this game is such a question mark to me, because the Niners, they've been playing easy teams for weeks. So I don't know what this team looks like against as good of a team as the Bears. The Bears, they have such a new team, such a young team that I don't know how they can perform against a battle-tested and well-coached team like the Niners. So I don't think there's going to be a clear favorite in this game. I mean, both coaches are just too good to where the other one isn't just going to run away with this game. But yeah, that being said, I have more faith in Purdy at this time, more faith in McCaffrey at this time, to where, yeah, it's going to be physical, but does Jauan Jennings get it done? Does Ricky Pearsall, if he plays, get it done? And I believe the answer to that is yes. Now, if George Kittle, like I said, if George Kittle is out, does that swing the game? Hell yeah, it does. Like, I think it is imperative that we have him in this game. Just because, like, there were times last game where Brock Purdy would just throw it up and George Kittle would go up and get the ball. Who else except Jauan Jennings is doing that? And also, who else from the tight end position is winning one-on-one? Like, we haven't shown consistently that we can feature a guy if Kittle is out from that tight end position. So if Kittle's out, I think that the Bears win this game. If he is in, I think he will provide big playability that the Niners will use to win this game. So that's a big thing to look for. Like, I wish I was doing this show, and I might do another one on Sunday when we have more clearance on whether he will be playing or not. Kyle Shanahan said he had a chance, so we'll see. We'll see. If he doesn't, obviously expect a hell of a lot more of Pearsall and McCaffrey, obviously. But then obviously expect Tonjes. Like, Tonjes is underrated. He's a guy who can go up and make contested catches. And so, yeah, expect a little bit more of an open playbook. And this is going to be a huge test for Purdy, because if he plays well, if he sticks to his guns, sticks to his check down, then we're talking about him continuing to play like a top 5 quarterback. I don't want to see him go outside of his box, like he did last year or 2 years ago against the Ravens, when we were talking about him being an MVP candidate in 2023, and then he went out and tried to do too much and threw 3 picks. That's not what you want to see. You want to see a guy who's managing the game. And I think I truly believe that we have enough talent to all he needs to do is manage this game. And it's a 20-17 win, like Niners. That's truly what I think. On top of the fact that it's just going to be good weather to where he's going to be able to throw the ball if he wants to. Because if it were in Chicago, it would be 15 degrees, and that's an adventure with Brock Purdy. So, yeah, that's all kind of the Bears versus 49ers breakdown. I actually had a ton of fun doing that because this is one of the more exciting matchups of the year. Now, if you guys want to stick around, I wanted to quickly do one more thing before I get out of here. Merry Christmas, by the way. I wanted to do a playoff simulator. I know one guy in the chat last week mentioned how they're having these like computerized playoff simulators where you can like plug in a win or a matchup, and it will automatically like give you the playoff scenarios. So we're going to quickly do that. Let me just quickly find a good screen for this. Man, I'm going to have to take away this backdrop because I don't know why it's being all weird. Stay with me here. Let's make the backdrop like the black backdrop potentially. Could we do that? And then why is it it's being weird for sure. Could we just do like a backdrop like that? And then let's see here. Hey. Okay. The mic's all good. Let's do a bold backdrop like that. Is this going to work? It might not, to be completely honest. I don't know why it's a box kind of screen. Let's full screen layout. Let's try to change this layout because otherwise, add to stage. Can we change the layout to this? Because that is weird. Like, I've never had that to where it's like a more boxed layout instead of rectangular. I was really hoping we could do this. My scenes. Let's add a folder, and let's do I really want to do this because I thought this would be a fun kind of thing, but demo scene. Okay. And then let's remove, add to stage. That's still boxed. I'm not really sure. I need to make it into a rectangle. So so the display is like still good. I'm not really sure how to do that. Probably should have done this before the show was over. All right. That's not going to work. Which is fine. I'll probably do another show where I lay out the playoff scenarios, but we've still got like 3 weeks left of the NFL season. So if I do that video or show in a couple weeks, then I'll get that figured out and do a show for you guys laying out the playoff scenarios for every single team. And that'll be a lot of fun. So stay tuned for that video. But without further ado, guys, it's been a fun half hour laying out the 49ers versus Bears matchup, recapping the Colts matchup. Go back and look at all of that. This has been a ton of fun. You guys have yourself a very Merry Christmas, and hopefully it's been good for all of you guys. Have a good night, or good afternoon, everyone.